welcome back to another episode of the Startup Starter Kit. Today's episode is all about surveys. In the previous episode, we were learning about market research, and surveys are a great way to get really high quality data and information from your customers. So I'm going to focus on today's lesson on what a survey is, why it's used, and some tips for designing really good high quality questions that's going to get you really high quality data. Let's get started. Thanks for tuning in to the Startup Starter Kit. And if you haven't done so already, you can subscribe to my channel and hit the bell notification so that you're notified every time I upload a new video. So thank you for tuning in and showing some support. So for those of you that don't know, I'm a big hockey fan and a Canucks fan. So once every while in my messenger, I'm going to get a little survey over here. So they're going to ask me some questions. And they're going to ask me questions like, are you watching the game tonight? Did you know what's fan appreciation? And what are some of your thoughts on the brands or the theme nights? So this is an example of primary data. Primary data is where you're trying to collect the data yourself rather than using secondary research sources. So primary data is all about collecting data yourself. And the Vancouver Canucks are obviously trying to collect data so that they can tweak their game nights, they can make better decisions, and they can host events that are more catered to the needs and wants of the Canucks fans. So this was Fan Appreciation Night, and every year they're going to tweak the theme nights a little bit based on fan preferences. So it's really important that they do surveys so they get reliable data, up-to-date data, and this is going to influence their decisions. So surveys are a very quick, cheap, and efficient way at getting all of this information. And as an incentive for the filling out the survey, I believe I filled out like 5 or 6 surveys, and they offered me free tickets to a Canucks game. So that was very nice of them. So what are surveys? Surveys are a set of carefully planned questions that are used to gather data. So you have a set of questions, and the respondent's going to answer them, and the questions are going to be tailored based on what you're trying to solve or what you're trying to figure out. So the survey over here was based on the fan preferences on the theme night. So what is your preference? Associated brands? Do theme nights influence your decision to purchase or attend games? So maybe you want to do a survey on customer service or pricing, or maybe a combination of the two. But they're an example of primary data, and we use them to increase knowledge for our own purposes, to analyze thoughts and feelings and the overall performance of our business. So we're really trying to gauge what our customers are thinking, and surveys are a great way to do so. So here are some of the other benefits of doing a survey. You get the data really quick, especially if you're doing things like Google Forms or Microsoft Forms or similar websites like SurveyMonkey. You can get data instantly because as long as the respondents fill it out and they submit it, that data gets automatically processed. So it's really fast, really cheap, low cost, and it's easy to use for both the respondent and the person creating the survey. It doesn't take very long to create a survey. You can send it out, you can share the link, and you can get a very high reach for your surveys. They're also very familiar too because people have probably taken surveys, so they know how to respond to these questions. So what do good surveys have in common? They have a clear purpose, they're easy to administer and easy for people to take, they produce reliable and consistent data, and they allow you to make decisions based on the data collected. So for example, if you're trying to introduce a new product or a new brand, surveys are a great way to get reliable and accurate data that's going to influence how you set up your brand or set up your company. I like to say easy to administer and easy for people to take, because if it's paper or it's very cumbersome for people to take, they're going to skip the questions. So I find that online platforms that have not too many questions are by far the most effective. So there's 3 ways that I found that through my survey taking experience are ways that we can improve surveys as a whole for your small business. First You want to carefully select a variety of survey questions and word the questions very succinctly and very concisely. Poorly worded surveys can create bias, confusion, and unreliable data. Second, try incentivizing people to take your surveys. A higher sample size results in more reliable data. It's proven that the more people take surveys, it's better than if only 5 or 10 people take your survey because it's more representative. So you want a high reach, so you can try incentivizing people to take your surveys. And third, if you incorporate e-commerce or online tools like Google Forms or Microsoft Forms or SurveyMonkey, they can tabulate the data and results super quick, and they're cost efficient. You have high reach, you can share the links, and they require minimal effort. So rather than using pen and paper to do surveys, having these online survey tools can allow you to conduct surveys more quickly, more efficiently, and get much more accurate results. Here are some questions that you can put in your survey, and I'm going to go over a few types. Now, I'm not going to go over yes or no questions. They're pretty straightforward, and you're just asking the respondent to either agree or disagree with the statement, so either a yes or a no. But Likert-type scales are a little bit more precise than yes or no. So you're asking these respondents strongly agree, agree, neither agree nor disagree, or strongly disagree. So you have a continuum or a scale. So here are some of the benefits of these type of questions. They're flexible, they cover some broad areas, they're easy to tabulate because you can see how many people say strongly agree, agree, or disagree, but they don't address why, and people tend to avoid extremes. There's something in a survey science called the middle point theorem, where people tend to vote towards the middle and they tend to avoid strongly agree or strongly disagree. So people tend to vote in between the 2, 3, or 4. So it can tend to be a little bit biased that way. But that's just sort of the survey science here. But these are some good questions if you want to improve the standard yes or no type of question. So I enjoyed my experience staying at the hotel. Do you strongly agree, agree, or in the middle, or disagree, or you strongly disagree? So these can cover a lot of broad areas, and these are very flexible types of questions. The next type of question is a semantic differential. So in the previous type of questions, it was strongly agree or strongly disagree. But now these are more on scales. On a scale from 1 to 7, where 1 is short and 7 is long, how would you describe the time that you had to wait for service? These are also really easy to compile results, easy for people to take. They're commonly used in surveys because you can take the average of the numbers. So for these type of questions, you can say that the average response was a 3.5, so they're very easy to tabulate. Here are some of the cons. Again, these don't address the why. Respondents interpret things very differently, and there tends to be a need to spend time to prepare these type of questions and the ranges as well. For some people, 5 minutes is long for waiting for service. For some people, 15 minutes is long. So you have to be very specific for these questions about what is considered long and what is considered short, because these things may be different for different people, because 5 minutes can be really long or 15 minutes could be very long. So you have to be very specific because people interpret things differently. So here is a picture that I took facing in my city. And there's a few ways I can word this question. If I wanted to use the Likert-type scales, I could be, do you strongly agree, agree, disagree, or strongly disagree that this photo was taken very well? So you can either say yes or no. However, if I used a semantic differential, I could say on a scale from 1 to 7, where 1 is very poorly taken or 7 is very highly taken, what do you think of this picture? So notice that just by wording the questions a little bit, you can get totally different results. So it's important that you include a wide variety of questions and you include a mix of both so that you can get really high quality results. So just the wording of the questions can create totally different meanings for respondents and can create totally different results. Multiple choice questions. You've probably taken a lot of multiple choice questions in school. So there's a question and there's 4 choices. So they're very easy to answer, objective results, and they're straightforward to tabulate. It's either A, B, C, or D. which ones did most people take? So I saw a survey from one of my subscriptions, which is the best time to post YouTube videos, and they had a variety of choices. So that'd be a multiple choice question. Again, the cons, it doesn't address why, and it may not give the respondent the answer they want. So some people, if they don't like the respondents, then they may choose to avoid these questions. So if you don't like traveling to Canada, maybe these respondents will skip the question. So if these choices don't relate to them or you don't like any of these choices, sometimes respondents can skip the question. So here are some examples of some wording and how the effect of just the wording of the questions can totally impact the results. So here's a poor example of a multiple choice question. You have a very short stem and it doesn't really have any purpose to this question. It's more of like a stat or something or a fact. Whereas this is a good example. What is the main reason so many people move to California? Very objective and there's a clear answer. But you have to word questions very specifically so that the respondents have an idea of what to answer for these questions. Rank order questions. So maybe you have some qualifiers and you can say which is most important to you when getting pizza. Is it delivery or is it the price or the toppings? So you can rank in terms of preferences, which is most important to you. So when you're deciding which brand you're going to purchase, which is more important, price or quality, and you can have a whole bunch of qualifiers. Here are some of the pros. You can assess rank ordering of objectives and objects relevant to your business. So the pizza, we obviously do like delivery, time, flavor, taste, pricing, topping. So you can have a whole bunch of objectives, and they force choices among alternatives. So you really get the respondents to really think about what's important to them, what's number one. There are a limited number of options, which is a big con because you can only have so many options. And again, this doesn't answer the question of why they prefer price over taste. And the last one is the open-ended questions. I like open-ended questions, but they're the most time-consuming. So they really allow you to address the issue of why, and you allow respondents to write about things relevant to them. So what can we do to make your experience more enjoyable? So you really get to narrow down into the nitty-gritty of what makes an enjoyable experience. So some people will say that an enjoyable experience is having a swimming pool or getting a lot of access to restaurants or air conditioning, refrigerator in the room for like a hotel. So you can really narrow down into the specifics and it addresses the issue of why. Open-ended questions, if you have too many, they're time consuming. You can lead to jump because people can type in spam or really short answers. Asking leading questions can also lead to bias. And if you ask more than one question in a specific box, then you can get a variety of weird answers. So if you put like 2 of these questions into one box and you're getting people to type paragraphs, then it can be very challenging to interpret the results. So let's move on to incentives for surveys. We had some conversations about what makes a good survey question, the different types of survey questions, but we need to think about why people take surveys in order to get a high reach. We want people to take surveys, but why do people take surveys in the first place? There's 3 reasons. Survey respondents, they want to be helpful and they want to help you out. They enjoy the topic of the survey. So if you're doing a survey about ice cream, then maybe perhaps you like ice cream or you have some expertise. And there's a tangible benefit in the form of an incentive. So if you look at some of these restaurants, they're going to incentivize you to do the surveys on the back by offering a free drink or a free food item or maybe some monetary incentives. You know, some people will give a cash incentive for taking a survey, like $3 or $4, but non-monetary benefits work as well, like discounts or other benefits. So you can really look at ways to encourage people to take surveys, but I find that if you include some sort of incentive, like a tangible or intangible benefit, then you can really get people to take surveys and increase the reach or the number of people taking the survey. The final way that I found that you can really improve the quality of your survey data and results is you incorporate e-commerce. So sometimes you may get a post-purchase survey. So you buy something online and you get the opportunity to fill a survey detailing your experience. So post-purchase surveys are now very common, and using these surveys can allow people and businesses to see patterns and to predict what customers want. And a lot of this is really good insights and data, which you can use for your business to have really good information to make decisions on. So I found that these platforms are good. Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, Microsoft Forms. Really depends on your preference on the interface and what you most commonly use. So I'm just going to go to Google Forms, and I'm going to demonstrate how to make a good survey with the variety of questions that I mentioned using Google Forms. So let's get started.